parts, guys.
So we need to chuck this 25-pound filter here, get a fresh Wix filter on here, and then get some fresh oil in this thing. From there, I've picked up some plug wires, an ignition coil. We're gonna test the spark. We're gonna figure out what is going on with the misfire on this thing. We're gonna start out with the plug wires after I get this block all cleaned up and get that breather filter off of there and drop a PCV valve in it. By the end, hopefully we know what we're doing. Okay, so I started pulling off the wires for the distributor up here. Let me try and get you a view. And this is the passenger side. I got these off the rest of the way now. I'm going to pull all four off, and then I'm going to match them all up, and then I'll just double check the firing order before I go installing wires again. Let's pull one and see what happens. Now let's pull multiple. Feels a little stuck. This is dumb. This is a stupid wire set. That's the one that probably made it so hard on the other ones. Alright, the junk wires. That was a pain in the butt, man. We gotta match these up. This super long one here, this is the one, yeah, this one's burned up here. I don't know if there's any other ones that are burned up, but we're going to go ahead and replace them all anyways. And even if it does turn out that we still got a blown head gasket on that, I at least got a new set of wires for it. And then at that point, we'll swap the head gasket. But right now, we're just seeing how much we can get away with. Alright, I got all the plug wires laid out. These are the old ones over here, and these things are so brittle and thin. They've stretched like crazy. But these new ones, nice and thick. They feel nice and fresh. They're ready to go on. But to start out with, just want to go all over the distributor and the firing order. So on this passenger side here, if you're looking directly at the distributor, it's 2, 8, 6, and 4. So to make it the easiest, I'm going to start out, I'm going to feed cylinder 2's wire down from here, because I feel like I got more of a gap from this top side to work with. And then get that one hooked up to the distributor, and then I'm going to move to cylinder 8. And just go work my way up the distributor because I don't really have a whole lot of room to work with and I don't want to make it tougher than it needs to be. So I'm going to start out grabbing this short guy here. We're going to start feeding it down through here to plug into the distributor, the very bottom post on this passenger side of the distributor. So the top side didn't work out for me. I ended up having to fish it up through the bottom side. So I'm going to try and give you somewhat of a view. You can see that wire going up and around the bracket there. And then that gave me enough space to reach down and grab it and hook it up to the cylinder. I got the wires done over here on the passenger side. And I already started putting the header back on. And, you know, wouldn't you know it, I dropped some bolts down to the abyss. And in the last 20 minutes, I haven't found them at all. I dropped 2 bolts. Or no, I dropped 1 bolt and 2 spacers. I can't find them anywhere, man. You can see, I've been looking. But I can't find it. So I'm going to need to run to the hardware store. Okay, I got the spark plug wires off on the driver's side now. And from bottom to top, the firing order is 1735. So I'm going to take the short plug wire I got here, and I'm going to put it on that bottom post and go to this very first spark plug right under here. And then after that, that second one is going to go to cylinder 7, way back there, cylinder 3, and then cylinder 5. Da-da-da-da-da. Okay, I got it all buttoned back up. This alternator's put back together. It's wired back up. It's plugged back in. I got the serpentine belt on. That's routed right. And then I got my heat oil dipstick put back in there. I didn't get a seal for that yet, but I will put a seal on that later. Either that or get a new dipstick tube. I don't know which one's the issue. But then I got the hose hooked up for here. I ended up having to rig something up because the hose didn't expand enough to go over that. But nonetheless, I'm going to leave that intake tube off and obviously the mass airflow sensor disconnected while we fire it up. I do have the O2 sensors plugged back in. But battery's connected. We are hot. We're ready to go. We're going to get this thing fired up now. It is open header, so it's not going to sound great. I mean, it's header, so it might not sound too bad, but let's go ahead and crank this over. Alright. I'll be ready to kill it if we need to. Here we go. This thing is loud. I'll let it idle for about another minute. Woo. That thing is loud. Let's give it a little rev, a little spice. Alright, so take a look down here. I got the spark plug tester right there in line for cylinder 1. I'm just going to fire the car up here in a second. I'm going to let it run, come around here, and we're just going to take a look. If the light is bright, we know we got good spark. But if it looks dim, then we're getting weak spark, either because of bad cap and rotor or bad nasty coil, which there's potential there. Alright, let's fire it up. Okay, I got the plate off that holds the coil and the ignition control module. This right here is the ignition control module, and just a little heads up for people, like with especially these old GM ones, if it runs fine at first and then once it gets hot, if it, you know, it stumbles and dies, a lot of times that's the ignition control module failing. But at any rate, that's not what we're here for. You got the old coil here. This thing, honestly, it looks like junk. It's rusted all over. Look at it. It's separating in there. Same thing down here. It's separating. And the whole thing itself looks like it's bulged outward, which, I don't know, maybe my eyes are bulged outward, but this is the new one, and obviously it looks a heck of a lot better. I am just going to go ahead and chuck this old one and toss this new one on. Instead of testing it. That would be the right thing to do, but I'm in a hurry and I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to plug it in and see if it does anything. Alright, let's plug it in and see if it does anything. Alright, well, it seemed better for a second, but you can still hear it missing. It's definitely got more. This hill I almost couldn't even pull away from last time. Oh, you hear it? Yeah, heavy load is a no-go. We should crawl under and take a look at the fuel filter. One easy way is if it's all rusted. That's a good way to know it hasn't been changed in a real long time. But either way, we should probably pop the lines off and see if the fuel filter's plugged. Oh, cracks right open. Great job. Woo! They don't look great. Oh, look how yellow that is. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the fuel lines and try and get some of this fuel drained out, if not all of it. I got the disconnect tool ready to go. We're going to take off those 2 lines. I already disconnected the vapor line here. And then I should be able to drape these over the front into a fuel can to drain. But to get the fuel pump to run continuously, you got this little test port here. You just got to run a wire from that over to the battery, over to the positive side, and then you'll have direct power going to the fuel pump, and it'll just drain all out. So I'm going to go ahead and get that set up to get going. Yeah, I got to get all this fuel out of here. I really hope it's not a full tank like it says. I went ahead and jumped over to the charging system, and I pulled this old ground wire off. This thing's all corroded, green, brown, multicolored. This is a new one down here. I cleaned up the stud it was on, plus the other connectors that ground there, and then I cleaned up the spot where it connects to the chassis and the stud that it's on, and then sanded down the chassis, got all the rust off of that so that it's nice bare metal for it to ground to. Then I swapped out for top post connectors on here and cleaned up the wires the best I could. I'll eventually swap out the cables, but for now, we got just, you know, a little less resistance there. I cleaned up this ground up here, sanded that down, got some fresh bare metal there, and then cleaned up all the connectors. And then in this thing, there's originally like a junction block where all these fusible links go, and then this cable comes out of it. Well, that's missing, and they had it just rigged up with the hardware holding it all together, super rusted. So I took that apart, put some, like a fresh nut and bolt through it, cleaned up the plate that it was all in, cleaned up the connectors the best I could, and wrapped it all back up. I did not clean the connection for the ground to the block or to the wire to the starter. So those are 2 areas that could be super corroded that need to be addressed still. But for now, this has got to help at least a little bit on the charging system. Okay, so to test the Optispark, this is what we're going to do. First thing, we need to disconnect the connector at the ignition control module down here. That's right above the coil. We're going to leave the coil, both connectors connected to that. We do need to turn the key on when we're testing for the voltage, obviously. So it's key on voltage we're going to test for. But I got it written down here. All the terminals, A, B, C, and D, pink with the black, which is that first one. That is terminal A. We're going to be checking that. We need at least 10 volts, 10 VDC on that pin to say that the Opti's working. And then also pin D, which is white with the black, down on this end here. So we're going to check both of those, and then we'll check pin B, which is just the white one. Yep, right there. And we'll check that while we're cranking it. We need to have between 1 and 4 volts. That's just a 5-volt reference. Now we got the key on. I'm going to stick this down to the ground that's going to the chassis. And we're going for pin A, which is the pink wire with the black stripe. We need above 10 volts. We got full voltage there. 12.3, that's direct voltage from the battery. Awesome. Now it's pin D, which is the white with the black wire. Just to verify. Look at that. 12.2. Just a little less than pin A, but still above that 10 volts reference. That's awesome. So now we just need to check pin D while we're cranking. Alright, give it a crank. Okay. Cool. Perfect, it worked that time. Yay! Alright, so I just spent like the last 6 hours swapping the spark plugs on this thing, and we got a couple gallons of some fresh 93 in it. Let's see if it made any difference. See how this does. Well, that didn't seem to have much issue. See what it's like coming from a stop here on the hill, though. Seems to be okay. Definitely doesn't feel like the 300 plus horsepower it's supposed to be. Ooh, we are billowing smoke out the back. Smoking pretty bad, but we're gonna go out here real fast. Just go around. Let's see here. See if that cleared anything out. She went to red line, that's for sure. Really shouldn't take it out, but I'm gonna. Yeah, this thing does not have it all. So after all the hard work we've done, we're still charging low, oil pressure's reading low, but that makes sense because look at how hot this freaking thing is right now. It's it's about to overheat again. It hasn't ran this hot since I put coolant in it. Now we're getting hot again. I wonder if we're out of coolant again. It even sounds terrible right now. You're missing hard. Ooh, wanting to backfire. Woo! She almost gave up there, guys. Yep. I think it's toast. On the plus side, we're barely smoking. Still a little bit. But I say barely. It did power brake slightly in the driveway. Didn't get that on camera, of course. Alright, this is going to be the point where I'm going to shut her down. We're starting to tickle that orange spot there, and that just doesn't feel right for me. Everything else looks awful. This is great. Got all the lights, got low oil pressure, got like no charging at all. We're just running off battery at this point. Yeah, I'd say everything's fine. Everything's going great. Alright, so just as I thought, this radiator is like bone dry. I see nothing in there. Look under this oil cap. Well, that's right. It's one of them fancy two-piecers. Oh yeah. Look at that. Let's pull the dipstick. Give me that thing. It's like gray. It doesn't look like normal oil. It is overfilled. It's definitely not good. Alright people, I'm done messing with this thing. It definitely used up the coolant. It's in the oil. The oil's overfilled with coolant. It's got blown head gaskets. Hopefully it's not worse than that. I'm just going to order up the gasket set, pull this thing out of the driveway, and get the Prelude in here and start messing with that thing. It's got plenty of work and I got parts for that. So, until next time, I'm Dan, the Prelude dude. I got blown head gaskets. This is the parts, guys. Peace.